4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, Leavenworth citizens. Welcome to the Mayor's Facebook Live Town Hall. And this is number 11, June 3rd, 2020. We had one, the last one we had was 2 weeks ago. We decided to go to every other week, so this is where we are. And this morning, we're gonna have, I have some guests here. In addition to the city manager, we have Commissioner Jermaine Wilson, who's going to talk about a unity walk. And then after that, we're going to have Police Chief Pat Kitchens talk a little bit about the incident that we had about a week ago on Centennial Bridge, and also some other aspects of his police department operations, particularly in light of what happened to Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a week ago this past Monday. And then after that, we'll transition. Commissioner Wilson is probably going to leave to go to work after he talks and presents his remarks. But at some point, the city manager and I will cover an update on COVID-19. Talk a little bit about the economic development situation in general with respect to that part of the crisis stemming from COVID-19 health crisis. And I'll talk about a little bit about a statement that the City Commission agreed to last evening. And if you're hearing a siren, it's the monthly, first Wednesday of every month, the county tests its emergency sirens. So we'll try to work through that over the next minute or so, but don't be concerned about that. It's just a test. And then there's time for questions throughout the Facebook Live Town Hall. So send your questions in, and we'll do our best to answer them. And if we can't, we'll find out the answer after the Facebook Live Town Hall and get back to you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Jermaine Wilson to talk about a unity walk this Saturday and anything else he wishes to talk about.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good to see you, Chief. Before I talk about the unity walk, I would just like to share a few remarks. This morning, I would like to address the public. I'll be speaking from my heart. I pray that each person receive this message out of love and not out of hate. How can we truly become united as a nation when our country has been divided for hundreds of years? This country was built on the backs of slaves, African Americans, men and women who were stripped of all rights and liberties and forcibly made to execute the hardest labor around, are undeniably responsible for the construction and subsequent power of the United States of America. But we are still not treated equally. African Americans have put on soldier uniforms and fought in many wars to serve and protect our countries, but still have to experience racism and segregation. In 2008, President Obama became the first African American president of the United States, but still blacks were experiencing wrongful incarceration and racism. When people say Black Lives Matter, they're not saying other lives doesn't matter. The statement simply means stop killing us because of the color of our skin. We have invested inside of this nation as much as any other race. We deserve to be treated equally. We cannot deny the fact that racism still exists in our country today. People are crying and hurting and searching for answers, but still have not received justice and equality. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd was brutally murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. During an arrest, a police officer kept his knee on the side of Floyd's neck, Mr. George Floyd's neck, for almost 9 minutes, while Floyd was handcuffed, laying face down, begging and pleading for his life until he died. This incident has broken our country. It is time for us, each one of us, to stand up and fight against racism. Our country is broken, And the only way that we can heal, we have to heal together. We cannot heal individually. The healing process is going to hurt. It's going to be painful. But in order for us to truly become united as one, we have to heal and grow together. We cannot change history. We cannot change the past, but we can change the future of our nation. It's going to take each one of us standing up and fight against racism together. That's exactly why we're here today to discuss the Unity Walk. This is going to be a peaceful protest for each one of us to come together and let our voices be heard. We will speak with one voice. We will speak out against racism and police brutality. We will stand together and be unified and to let people know we are one inside of our community. We are working together to make Leavenworth a better community. There is no division amongst us, but we are together united. The event will be June 6th, this upcoming Saturday at Richard Allen Culture Center. We will be meeting there, and we ask and encourage everyone to please, as many people as possible, to park your cars at Bob Doherty Park so we can have some parking space available and walk up to the Richard Allen Culture Center. The route will be posted on the city's website and as well as through other social media sites to inform you the route that we're going to be taking. We're currently waiting for approval, but this is going to be peaceful. We will not tolerate any violence. We have met with our local law enforcement earlier. We have agreed to stand together side by side and walk this peaceful protest out together and collectively. So at this time, I just want to say thank you for listening. And remember, together we all can make a difference. Let us stand together, be united. Let us love unconditionally. And most of all, let us love each person like Christ has loved us. God bless you. And with the chief's permission, can I get a hug, my friend? Appreciate you, man. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of those that serve and protect.
Any questions for Commissioner Wilson? The only thing we are going to try to maintain as much as possible the
Correct.
social distancing.
Yes.
And masks are highly recommended.
Correct, yes.
So I just wanted to, and I was part of that meeting, and I
Yes,
think
sir.
we've got to do that because we don't want to, we want to minimize the risk. And this is a very important event that'll happen in our community on Saturday, but we
Correct.
definitely don't want to increase the risk with respect to COVID-19.
Yes, sir.
But thank you very much for your very powerful and inspirational remarks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thank you for the planning that's gone in thus far to the Unity Walk. And I look forward to it, and I think many of our citizens look forward to that event on Saturday.
Yes, sir. God bless you. And thank you.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
I'm going to turn it over to Police Chief, Leavenworth Police Chief, Pat Kitchens, and he'll take it from here. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Before you get out of here, thank you for your powerful words. We hear you. The burden is ours to change, and we're going to work on that very hard.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime there is an event like this, the police department has to look at themselves. We all have to look at ourselves, and we all have to make a commitment to be better. What happened in Minneapolis was terrible. It was awful. It was frightening. Every single police officer at the Leavenworth Police Department has expressed their anger and their disgust at what happened. And it just simply is something that cannot be tolerated. But I'll reiterate what I said since the beginning, that the burden for improvement, the burden for change is ours. It rests with us. We need the public's participation in that, but this is a burden that we bear, whether we are in Minneapolis or not. This is a burden that all police officers bear across the country. We have done, in the last week, a comprehensive review of every aspect of the police department. That will continue as we go forward. We'll continue to do that. We always do that when these terrible events happen, to do everything we can to ensure that we don't make the same kinds of terrible decisions. And so I think that's the way that we'll leave it with that, Mr. Mayor, regarding the events in Minneapolis.
Okay. Are you going to talk a little bit about what happened or the incident on
Sure.
the bridge, if you just relate a little bit. I know you've had some press conferences.
Right.
And you've done a wonderful job getting the word out in terms of what happened, the actions that your police department took and other law enforcement agencies. But just since we have a Facebook Live town hall audience,
Sure.
if you could just share a little bit of that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So on that particular day, it was right before 11 a.m. We got a number of 911 calls from the public regarding a person shooting on the bridge. There's a fairly substantial law enforcement response from both the Leavenworth Police Department, the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Department, the Kansas Highway Patrol, the Platte County Sheriff's Department. Anytime there's some report of active shooters, it gets a substantial response. I think all told, there was about 75 police officers that responded. I think most everybody might have seen that in fairly short order, the situation came quickly to an end and peacefully because of the heroic efforts of Master Sergeant Royer, who saw the event, he saw the active shooter, and using the only option available, struck him with his car. We spent a lot of time closing the bridge that afternoon for obvious reasons. We needed to do that so we could complete the investigation. In the coming days, we presented the facts and circumstances to our Leavenworth County Attorney Todd Thompson and his staff, and they have preferred and moved forward with a series of very, very serious charges, including attempted murder and a variety of other things. It was harrowing. It was frightening. There were young kids in the cars that were struck by bullets. It was an absolutely awful event, and we were just very fortunate that Master Sergeant Royer was there. We've been in communication with the staff on Fort Leavenworth, provided a series of necessary information to ensure that he receives the highest recognition that's available to him. I'm certain that they will be moving forward with that as expeditiously as possible. And so, it was terrible, but also extraordinary all at the same time. We're just quite lucky and very, very fortunate that Master Sergeant Royer was present, and we'll move forward with the criminal prosecution and the like. So a lot of discussion about whether Master Sergeant Royer can receive a free truck. I think there might be some ethical issues that the military has with that. But I think if you saw Master Sergeant Royer this week as he was making the rounds, he did not do that to get a free truck or any of that sort of thing. He is just a great guy, an extraordinary guy. I sure would hope that he would get a free truck, but I don't know how that's going to end up. But hopefully we can get his truck fixed and get all that situation resolved. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
We did have one request just to sort of recap one more time the event on Saturday for anybody who just joined us a little bit late. So if you just want to give maybe a 1 minute on what we're doing Saturday or what's going on Saturday, what time, and kind of who's involved.
Sure. There is going to be a unity walk sponsored. The sponsoring organizations are the local chapter of the NAACP and the Unity and Community Organization. Those are the two sponsoring organizations. But we are going to meet as a community at the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum, which is on 4th Street. I don't recall the actual, but people know where it is. It's just south of the intersection of 4th Street and Metropolitan. And we're going to have some very short presentations of remarks from various people, including Commissioner Wilson and myself as the mayor, probably Joanna Schultz, who's the president of the local chapter of the NAACP, and a few others. But those remarks will be kept brief, and and it starts at 9 a.m. As Commissioner Wilson said, really encourage people to park down in and around Doherty Park, and then walk up to the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum because there's limited parking in the parking lot at the Cultural Center. And the actual route, we will still working out kind of the final arrangements and the final route that we'll take, but that'll be posted soon in the next 24 to 48 hours on the I believe the city's website. I think we'll publish that, and I know Unity in the Community will publish it, and probably on their website. Correction, their Facebook, put it out on Facebook, as will the local chapter of the NAACP. And it's just to express our togetherness, to continue to build on the trust within our community, and it'll be a peaceful walk for the right purposes of bringing us closer together as a community, and as Commissioner Wilson said, starting the healing process, but also trying to, each of us thinking in our own minds how things can change within the United States, because things do need to change. And I'll talk a little bit about that maybe a little bit later in this particular Facebook Live town hall. So is that good enough, Mr. Kramer? Okay. Let me, since we're talking about the senseless and tragic death of Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis, last night during our study session, the City Commission approved a statement from the City Commission, which it's not a long statement, but I think I'll read it now since we have a Facebook Live town hall audience, and I read it last night at the meeting, but let me go ahead and read it now for the citizens who are listening in. Statement from the Leavenworth City Commission to Leavenworth citizens, dated June 2nd, 2020. This is our statement. We are heartbroken and appalled by the senseless and gruesome death of George Floyd in Minneapolis on May 25th, 2020. First and foremost, we extend our sincerest sympathies to Mr. Floyd's family. His death, as well as other African Americans who have died because of police brutality, is a tragedy for every community across our nation, including Leavenworth. Our hope is that Mr. Floyd's death serves as a catalyst for real and lasting reform in the nation's policing practices and criminal justice system. As elected officials, we will continue to do our very best to set the conditions within our city in which every citizen is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. In this regard, we accept our responsibility to address instances of unequal treatment of Leavenworth citizens, whether it be in their interactions with police officers, the criminal justice system, or both. But in carrying out this responsibility, we ask that all citizens work with us and with one another to build trust and to show by our actions the community's commitment to a just, fair, and peaceful society. So that's the statement of the Leavenworth City Commission, and if we haven't done it already, we will put that out on social media, the social media accounts that the city has, maybe at some point here in the next 24 to 48 hours on the city's website, and I will probably read this statement again during my brief remarks during the Unity Walk on Saturday. I'm going to make a shift to just COVID-19. Just a little review. I had wanted to do these Facebook Live town halls, since I took over as mayor. First one was scheduled, I think, for the March 20th, but about a week before then, this health crisis, COVID-19 health crisis, pretty much consumed everybody's focus, as it well should have. And so this is the 11th Facebook town hall, so the last 10 of them have really been focused on COVID-19 and the city's response to that, the county's response to that, looking at it a little more broadly from the respect of the state of Kansas and also our federal government, trying to look at things that we had to adjust as far as city services, trying to get information out to our local business, small businesses, some of the programs that were made available through the United States Congress, and that in terms of loans and things like that. So it was a good vehicle, a good tool to get the word out and to keep people informed. So, but 2 weeks ago, we felt that we didn't need to do it every week. So now we're here 2 weeks later, and we have other things that are happening in our country, and which we've talked about a little bit already during this town hall. But I do want to give a little update on COVID-19 to tell you where the state is, and then also the Leavenworth County and the city of Leavenworth. And so I went on, late yesterday, I went on the website for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. So this data is as of yesterday at this data is as of June 1st, which would have been Monday. So they have, in the state of Kansas, 10,011 cases of COVID-19, hospitalizations 862, deaths due to COVID-19 217 at the state level. And just let me talk a little bit about number of cases from 2 weeks ago when we had our Facebook Live Town Hall. That's an increase of almost 2,900 cases. That's a lot of cases. A lot of that is due to the increase in testing within the state and the various counties within the state, but that's the comparison 2 weeks ago to where we are now. With respect to deaths, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was about 158 or 159, but we are up 59 from that from 2 weeks ago. We're at 217, so 59 deaths during that 2 week period from when I last talked to you. And the case rate at the state level per 1,000 people, per 1,000 of our citizens within Kansas is 3.44%. And that's compared to a case rate within Leavenworth County of 13.4%, which is of course higher. I think that higher rate is mostly due to what's happened in terms of the inmates and some of the staff, unfortunately, both unfortunately, at the Lansing Correctional Facility and the Grossman Center. That's why that case rate in Leavenworth County is really significantly higher than it is across the state as a whole. But in Leavenworth County, as of yesterday, there are 1,093 cases that have of COVID-19 that we've had since the data was being tracked back when it began in probably mid-March is when the data started to be tracked and when the county and the state and the city really focused on the COVID-19 health crisis. At the state level, the average age of somebody who's contracted COVID-19 is 43. The median age is 41 years of age. Youngest case, as we've talked about before, is a baby, not even 1 year old. The oldest person is 103. And most cases of all the various age groups are from the year group 25 to 34 years of age. Almost 1,900 cases representing almost 20% of the overall number of cases. So it's not like younger people can't get COVID-19. Fortunately, most younger people are in better health and don't have the comorbidities that those of us in the older age groups may have. But I think that's that's why I kind of highlighted on that one particular statistic. And actually the next age group, 35 to 42 is probably the next highest in number of the cases. So you're getting the kind of the trend there and what I'm trying to convey. As far as deaths at the state level, median age is 79. The youngest was 36 years of age, and the oldest person to have passed away was 99. And once again, the year group and the age group with the highest number of deaths are people 85 years and older, and there's 82 people in the state in that age group who have passed away from COVID-19, and that represents almost 38% of the deaths. So once again, just reinforcing that if you're in these older age groups, you're more susceptible because of just the aging process and the fact that as people get older, they deal with comorbidities and other things that affect their health. Let me talk a little bit about Leavenworth County. This was data as of yesterday. And as of yesterday at 4 p.m., as I mentioned, there were the number of cases confirmed positive were 1,095. And I guess I had said 1,093, but that was the data from the state. That was 24 hours before the data that I pulled down from the public health site from Leavenworth County. So that represents the 1,095 cases represents plus 42 cases since our last Facebook Live Town Hall 2 weeks ago. So an additional increase of 42 cases. Fortunately, well, we haven't had any increase in deaths since 2 weeks ago. The deaths remain at 7 within the county, and if that's a 0.63% death rate, which is very, very low and very, very good. And the fact that we haven't had any deaths within the county in the last 2 weeks is very encouraging. I'm looking at the new community cases per day, and recently within the last week to 10 days, they're looking pretty good, like 1, 0, maybe a 2, mostly 1s and 0s. And there was one day where there was a 4, but if we can keep that at 0, 1, or at the most 2, I think the county is doing what it needs to do in terms of, preventing, or not preventing, but certainly minimizing the spread as much as possible of COVID-19. So I did look at that part of the graph and the chart that's available from the county, and that seems to, in the last 2 to 4 weeks, those cases per day seem pretty favorable. They haven't, it hasn't indicated that, the crisis is, rebounding, so to speak. I don't think there's anything else with respect to Leavenworth County numbers. If you have any questions, if I haven't covered something that you might want to have covered, please let me know. I will say, in terms of the 1,095 confirmed positives, 830 of those were Lansing Correctional Facility inmates, so that was the great bulk of those. And 198 were considered community cases, and then 67 were from the Grossman Center. So that's a wrap up of our statistics for the county. Let me just talk a little bit about economic. I think that in general, the businesses, small businesses in particular, who wanted to get the Paycheck Protection Program loans were able to do that either with the first tranche of money that came out with the first CARES Act, and with the second tranche of money that came out with the second CARES Act. I think it was their fourth major relief bill that the United States Congress passed since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. I know that our small businesses are the ones who had banking relationships, which were most of them, really worked well with our bankers. Our bankers, went above and beyond to help them fill out the applications. This isn't just locally, but it's in the metro area, regionally, in the state. And that was just the community coming together and doing their very best to get as many of our small businesses who needed those loans to understand the information that needed to be put in through the application process and to get those loans. Now, so I would say that has been a success, but now the small businesses are looking towards the forgiveness aspect of the loan, because the loans were, I think, a 1% interest rate, but there are criteria for forgiveness of the loan. When the first CARES Act came out, that third major relief bill, I think the criteria was that whatever the loan was, 75% of that had to be for payroll. So in other words, those people had to either be there working, or they had been brought back to work in the recent past, in the last week or two. But by the end of June, they have to have 75% of that loan has to be dedicated to payroll. What I was just told by Mr. Will Katz, who's the Small Business Development Center director for Northeast Kansas, and his office is at the KU campus in Lawrence. He told me that the House, the United States House of Representatives, recently passed a bill that includes taking that down to only needing 60% of that money being devoted to payroll, because some business owners had to let their people go, and they were certainly below the that 75% threshold that we were talking about. Now, that's good, 75% to only having to, you could be eligible for that forgiveness with 60% of your payroll of the loan being for payroll versus 75%. But that bill, I believe, is over with the Senate, and they have to work out the details of everything else in that bill, including this particular aspect of the bill. So we'll see what happens. Haven't heard too much. We haven't heard too much in the last week because of what's been going on within our country as a result of the death of Mr. George Floyd and the protests that have occurred within the country. But hopefully we'll start hearing something about that, because I believe that there is a commitment by our elected officials at the federal level, our legislators, that they are going to come up with a kind of a fifth major relief bill, except that we don't, in the Senate's got to go to work. I think they're working on it. Hopefully we'll hear something in the next, week to 10 days to 2 weeks, and they'll deal with this 75% to 60% lowering that threshold in terms of that having to be, dedicated to payroll to, the employees that are part of the various businesses. So I think that's the major update. But forgiveness, obviously, our small businesses are going to want to be forgiven on this loan, so they don't have to pay back any of the loan in terms of, and so that is something that we'll keep, I'll try to keep the business owners informed about, and I'll certainly get information from Mr. Will Katz and maybe our Leavenworth Main Street organization and Leavenworth County Development Corporation. I think they'll keep up on this particular information. Let me talk a little bit about what's happening at the state level, because as a result of that first CARES Act, there was money went to states for COVID-19 related expenses. Kansas received $1.25 billion from the federal government as a result of that CARES Act, that first, the third major COVID-19 relief bill. This is an update as of about 24 hours ago. Governor Laura Kelly said this past Monday, that a team she appointed to help her plan for the state's economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemics will begin discussing this week how to spend that $1.25 billion in federal relief funds. And that's kind of what I wanted to give the citizens an update on, because that money does need to get down in the very, very near future to the county governments, to the city governments, and this is what this is an update about. The Democratic governor also said she is confident that she can work out an agreement with the Republican-controlled legislature to give them some oversight over how funds are spent. Kelly said the money has to be distributed by the end of the year, and she expects the first round of spending to include payments to cities and counties to cover their coronavirus-related costs. A 5-member executive committee of Kelly's 20-member planning team plans to have its first meeting Tuesday, which was yesterday. There was a real desire on the part of some in the legislature to have some control, Kelly said during a State House news conference. I think we can come up with something that they feel comfortable that they've got the right kind of oversight that they ought to have and want, without giving up the nimbleness that we need to get the money out. The flexibility is another way to say that, to start getting the money out to the county and the city governments within the state of Kansas. So that's an update there. That's a very, very important issue. Your state representatives and a state senator should be keeping up with that. And I believe that they have a session that was beginning today in Topeka. I don't know how long it's going to go for, but this would be something that our state representatives and our state senator for District 5 should be working on, among other things. But they did go back into a session beginning today, and how long that goes for, I don't know, but you can keep up with that on Facebook and other types of news and media outlets. Let me just say a little bit about the situation on the bridge a week ago today. Master Sergeant Royer, an absolute hero. He was the right person at the right time, with the right training, with the right inclinations and the right motivations to do what he did. And we thank him from the bottom of our heart, from the standpoint of all the citizens within our city, within our county, within our region, for his courageous action and we will, at some point in the future, probably recognize him more formally here with some type of ceremony from the city commission and your city government of Leavenworth. Don't know the exact date as to when that'll happen, but I certainly am committed to doing that. I was able to give him a coin last Wednesday after his press conference, which was covered very comprehensively by the local media, and I think picked up by some of the national media outlets. But he saved what could have been and prevented what could have been a much, much worse situation, obviously. The other thing I said, I did have an opportunity to talk for a minute or two at the press conference last Thursday, I think it was the day after the incident, is that our thoughts and prayers from the standpoint of the city commission and the citizens of Leavenworth were with the soldier who was shot. He was at that point still hospitalized within KU Med, but he's doing much better. In fact, Chief Kitchens told me that he's now out of the hospital. He's a member of the recruiting office that's here in the city of Leavenworth, downtown Leavenworth, but it's part of the battalion that's out there by Kansas City International Airport, and I think he was going back probably to the battalion headquarters or maybe his home, but he's doing a lot better, and we're thankful for that, and just we wanted to let him know and that we continue to keep him and his family in our prayers. And then the third thing that I mentioned was just the coordination between and the fast reaction and the very professional reaction of the Leavenworth Police Department first and foremost, but of course Platte City Sheriff's Office, the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office, our fire and safety rescue people, the EMTs, the whole public safety, all the first responder community that reacted once the call came in to that very difficult and very dangerous situation. And I just wanted them to let them know that we very much appreciate their professionalism on a day-to-day basis, but that was one time when that their training and their training, their organization, their dedication had to be put into had to be executed, and they did a great job. And the other thing that we have a really great relationship with Fort Leavenworth, and we've had for years, decades, probably about 160 years in terms of that's how long Leavenworth's been a city. Of course, Fort Leavenworth was a few years, about 20 years, almost 20 years before that. But we have a great relationship with the military in Fort Leavenworth, and that showed up in the particularly in the fact that two soldiers, and particularly Master Sergeant Royer, was the hero of this particular situation, but just the coordination afterwards in terms of the press conferences and the communication between Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth, getting the word out so our public is informed, not only here within the city, but also the military families and military personnel who live on Fort Leavenworth. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager. I think he's got a few points to give out to the public. Mr. Kramer?
Yes, thank you. A couple notes for everybody watching on some city facilities, some questions we've had over the last 30 minutes of the town hall. We had a question about trash bags. I think the long-awaited trash bag delivery started in part last Saturday. Those in the roughly northern half of the city should have received their trash bags. And this weekend, Friday will be a little bit of the south, and then Saturday, the rest of the remainder of the south part of the city will receive their trash bags. So after all of that, we should be done until the fall. We thank you for your patience as we tried to work through how to get those trash bags out to residents with the pandemic, with labor shortages, working with the Lions Club. So we know that those trash bags were much in need throughout the community, and I think by the end of the day Saturday, everybody should have received their trash bags through the delivery. A couple of city notes. On Monday, June 8th, this coming Monday, staff will reopen the restrooms at city parks. The question have been, well, the parks are open, why aren't the restrooms open? Restrooms are a little bit different animal than just opening the parks. They're a city facility or a city building. We have standards for those as far as cleaning, sanitizing, and working through the reopening process. So again, those will reopen on Monday for use by the public, and we will post something on those to let you know that they are cleaned, but they're only cleaned once a day, and so that it'll be up to the individuals to decide how they want to use those. A couple other notes regarding city facilities, city amenities. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the decision to close the Woolman Aquatic Center. That was announced about a week ago. The city held out longer than most metro pools. Some have decided to open, the majority have decided to close. At the end of the day, it came down to there are too many factors we cannot control. The snack area, the changing area, the restroom area, the line for the slides, the line for the diving boards, the free play aspect of it. We don't expect everybody to agree, but we just ask that you understand that the decision was made on behalf, first of all, of the community, and then second of all, on behalf of our staff, our lifeguards. We didn't feel that there was a way that we could do that in a manner that was safe for everybody involved. So it was a very tough decision that we made. And, you know, there's been speculation about if was it budget related. It wasn't budget related. The pool did very well last year. We aimed to operate the pool on a break-even basis. So if it doesn't open, or if it does open, it doesn't have a large impact on the city budget. That's never a consideration. City recreation programs are never designed to make money or sometimes even support themselves. They are truly amenities for the public. So the next question is, what about, we did get a question, I'll answer this now. The water fountains at the dog park, we're gonna open those also on Monday. During the restrictions put out by the governor and in the county, we felt that it didn't match with those to have something like a public water fountain be open. At this point, with no restrictions still in place, we are going to make that sort of do so at your own risk. If you want to use the water fountain, you can. If you choose to use some sort of material to push the button and fill up a cup, you can certainly do that. But those will be open on Monday, June 8th. Monday, June 8th is also the day that we will open City Hall. I strongly encourage everybody to use our online capabilities rather than come to the building if you can. Building permits, fence permits, any kind of licenses or registrations can almost all be accomplished online. Please visit the city's website. We still will have the drop box outside City Hall, so job applications or anything that you are turning into the city, we still encourage you to use that. We will have some restrictions in place inside the building as far as access through different areas of the building. We have taken the last month or so to have shields put up, shields similar to what you'll see at the grocery store or Home Depot, the plexiglass shields to protect both our staff and the public. We will not require face masks in the building, and we're able to do that by limiting the areas that the public will be able to access. And when you're in those areas, your interaction with city employees will be separated by those plexiglass shields. So if you need to come to City Hall, you will be able to starting on Monday, but we please ask if you can accomplish what you need from City Hall electronically via phone. If we can mail something to you, something along those lines, that would be the first option. The community center is something we are still working on. It is a big building with a varied array of uses. Right now, I can announce that on June 15th, the week after City Hall opens, on June 15th, we will open different parts of the community center. The track downstairs for walking will be open. The weight room will be open. We will not be opening the gym on June 15th. We are trying to work with, through the state, some of the parks associations on what some of the best practices are for gym usage. Those are very popular. We want to get those open for more recreational opportunities for our citizens, but we want to make sure we can do so in a safe manner. You will see some control as you walk into the building. We'll have a registration sheet when you come in, and we may have some limitations on certain areas about how many people we will allow in certain areas. One thing I can also announce is that on June 15th, when we reopen, the indoor pool will be open, but I want to caution that it's not open for open swim, and it's not only just open for lap swimmers. We are going to offer small groups of 6, and you can sign up on the website in different sessions, swim lessons for children. We thought that that was important. It was something we can do and we can control. We can control the access, we can control the separation, and we can try to provide that vital service to our children and some of our residents. We will be doing them in 2-week groups. So you'll have Monday through Thursday for 2 weeks, and then we'll go to the next group. We'll have several times during the days to try to maximize the amount of residents we can serve. But again, we're doing that because we can control where those patrons go and the spacing and the individual laps. So that schedule will be put out on the website by the end of the day today or maybe first thing tomorrow, and to allow some registration. So we are trying to do the best we can with responsibly opening amenities. As everybody knows, the playground restrictions are no longer there. The restrooms will open, the dog park's open, recycling center's open. The brush side is open, so we hope that you see that it's been a progressive move toward reopening in a responsible way, and that each decision is made after considering our ability to safeguard both the public and our employees throughout the steps. I'll check questions here in a minute. I haven't been able to look down for a second. And so that was what I wanted to announce. One other thing is we did not have the city tennis tournament earlier in the year. We have rescheduled that for June 26th through the 28th. Again, the city tennis tournament is something that lends itself to proper social distancing, but also is another recreational opportunity for our residents that we are happy to be able to reopen because it's an event that allows us to control people and placement. So I think you can register now, if not now, by tomorrow for the city tennis tournament, June 26th through 28th. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll collect a couple questions,
Okay.
and maybe we can circle back at the end.
That's good. I was thinking about the Unity Walk on Saturday, and two things. This is just common sense, but it's going to be pretty hot, I believe, so dress appropriately. I would recommend wearing sunblock, and there'll be at least a couple of water stations along the route, and like I said, we'll publish that route within the next 24 or 48 hours in terms of the route that the walk will take, but just those final, some details that I didn't cover when I first talked about the Unity Walk earlier in the Facebook town hall. Let me, one thing, and I'm kind of circling back here because I want to just share with you the essence of the Leavenworth County Guidance for Reopening, which was published and was effective 27 May 2020, which is a week ago today. This was information and the guidance for reopening of the county with respect to COVID-19, reopening in quotes. This is from the Leavenworth County Health Department and of course approved by the Board of County Commissioners. But let me just, it was about 3 pages, but I'm just going to take a few excerpts from what I think citizens should know. They prepared this document to offer guidance on a safe reopening of Leavenworth County. And they said, we must continue to take measures to ensure the safety of our most vulnerable populations. We must continue to ensure the community's ability to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. In an effort to do this, the Leavenworth County Health Department is providing the following guidelines. And I'm not going to repeat all of it, but I'll try to summarize the most important aspects. And these guidelines help to better define best practices within the county. We, the Leavenworth County Health Department and the Board of County Commissioners, understand that restarting economic activity is one of our county's priorities at this time, along with keeping our community safe and limiting the spread of COVID-19. And this is a critical time to be thoughtful and careful about reopening the county. We will continue to investigate outbreaks, cases, testing, and contact tracing, etc. And that is going on. Probably not as known to as many citizens, but the public, Leavenworth County Health Department is continuing to do that, and that's an absolutely necessary task that must and will continue. And they finally said, we appreciated how Leavenworth County has taken steps to mitigate this virus and ask that everyone continues to help with that effort, and that goes for all the citizens of the city of Leavenworth. And I'll just review some of the basic guidance for all businesses, organizations, and residents. When able, continuing to stay at home is recommended. Social distancing measures should continue to be followed. Stay 6 feet away from others. Interact only with people of the same household when possible. Limit non-essential travel. Masks should be worn in all public places. Practice good hand hygiene by washing hands with soap and water or using hand sanitizer frequently. Individuals with symptoms of COVID-19, including but not limited to fever, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, headache, chills, aches, fatigue, loss of smell or taste, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, must remain home and seek medical attention if needed. Vulnerable, high-risk individuals and senior citizens should stay at home as much as possible. They should stay in contact with their health care provider and should not congregate with others who are not members of their immediate household. Visitors or customer logs, and these are by our business people, are encouraged to aid in contact tracing information to include date, name, and phone number. I don't think that's something that's being done a lot out there, but there may be some of our businesses who are doing that only, to help with respect to this, need to contact trace if in fact somebody is diagnosed with COVID-19. It's critically important that the people who this person was in contact with, we know who those people are, so the tracing can be done and they can be quarantined and other steps taken as necessary to minimize the risk to other people. Businesses should follow industry-specific guidelines. Any additional best practice guidance from each business sector is strongly encouraged and recommended. I know our businesses in each one of the various areas, various industries are doing that, and they didn't need that particular piece of guidance to do that, but it's good that it's there. But I know for sure that if there are businesses that are not, I think they're very they would be the exception to the rule from what I've seen in my trips downtown and recently getting a haircut at my favorite barber. So that's about it as far as that particular. I'm sure it's on the county's website for COVID-19, and this was the order or the guidance that came out effective the 27th of May, 2020. Are there any other questions that came in, Mr. Kramer?
We had two. One I can answer, one I don't have an answer for, but we'll get back to the individual. We had a question about the waterworks repair on 10th south of Spruce. Yeah. Our latest communication with them is about 2 more weeks. It's a pretty big project out there, so about 2 more weeks on that project. We had a question about the urban beekeeping issue that the commission talked about, and I'll have to circle back around with their city planner and reach out to that individual. So we'll get you an answer on that.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the great bulk of our business for today's Facebook Live Town Hall. Thank you for joining us, and as I said, we're still our overriding priority of the city. That includes the city commission, the city manager, and his staff, is to do our very best to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all Leavenworth citizens. With everything that's happened in the last week, not only here on our Centennial Bridge, but also across the country with respect to what's happening based on the events that happened in Minneapolis on May 25th. We could, unfortunately take our eye off all the steps that we've taken over the last 10 to 12 weeks in terms of mitigating the spread of COVID-19 and treating, quarantining and then treating patients who've been hospitalized with that dreaded virus. But that's where our focus remains as your city commission, and we'll continue to focus on providing accurate and pertinent information relating to COVID-19. We'll, as the city manager went over today, the adjustment of city services and the progression of well, we had to close most of the city services or certainly curtail them, and now they're, over the last month or so, they've been opening back up, and that's a good way to describe it, as the progressive reopening of the various city services. And I want to commend the city manager and his staff, because I think it's been a very good plan, well executed, and we've been able to get the word out to our citizens, so they have the information they need to take advantage of the services. And then finally, just advocating for small businesses, and we'll keep that up. We're kind of in a low right now, but by the end of the month, hopefully the procedures that have come out from the Small Business Administration in terms of the applications that our small businesses need to fill out to get their loans, their Paycheck Protection Program loans forgiven. I know 2 weeks ago, they were pretty complicated. Hopefully, maybe they've been streamlined a little bit. I know that the small business, the accountants that work with our small businesses, and even the bankers, I think, will be willing to work with them so they can get those applications in over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. So hopefully that process has been simplified from what I saw 2 weeks ago, but we'll see. But other than that, I think we are finished for today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and for the rest of the week, have a good week. I know the weather's going to be pretty good. It's getting hot, so just stay hydrated. And in 2 weeks, we'll have another Facebook Live Town Hall. Not next week, but 2 weeks from today, we'll do this again. So good day, and have a good rest of your week. Thank you.